Next, we will be learning about how to create assignments in Google Classroom. Google Classroom has a lot of great features that allow for differentiated learning as well as collaboration. To begin, we will click the Classwork tab across the top navigation. From here, we can press the Create tab. As we can see, there are a lot of options that appear: assignments, quiz assignments, question, material, reuse post. This topic piece is all for organization, and we'll come back to that in a little bit. So for this example, I'm going to start with assignment. And when we click this, we can see that it brings up a creation window, and this is pretty typical for what you see for any of the type of assignments that you create in Google Classroom. The first thing I always recommend is to make sure that you put in a title. A lot of the times the title is what unlocks other features, so without it, you might not be able to do all of the settings that you want to before pushing out an assignment. So for today, we'll just call this test assignment. Awesome. And so we do have an option here to add some instructions, and this is really whatever is up to you. I noticed that a lot of teachers, myself included, we put instructions in the actual attached assignment. So sometimes we don't really need too much detail here, but you might want to just put something short and brief that says, read through the directions on the attached assignment. Of course, if your assignments are a little bit more complex, you might want to put steps in here. You might want to add more descriptions. You might want to go through all of the attachments you actually include for your students. But for right now, I'm just going to keep it pretty vague in general. The next thing is to actually add an assignment, and we do have two different options here for how we want to attach the master copy, so to speak, to our assignment. So the first one is to add. If you already have an assignment built somewhere, I strongly suggest Google Drive to be where you build your assignments at. But if you already have something built, you already have a link that you want to use, you have a YouTube video, you're going to click the paperclip add button. And from here, a few choices appear. We have Google Drive, we have link, file, YouTube. So again, if you've already created something in Google Drive, you'll just want to pull straight in from Google Drive. What's nice is once you already attach it to this, even though you have it in your Google Drive somewhere else, it also makes a master copy in a Google Drive specifically for this classroom. And you can find that in your Google Drive just by searching for the class name, or the course name, sorry. Link would be if you're just trying to link to some sort of other source on the internet, any other URL. This is really good for if you want to link to a picture or link to a video or link to another website. I know I do a lot of like discovery ed links, so this is a really good choice if you want to take students to another website. File would be if you're uploading something from your computer. Maybe you have a PDF that you want to post on here for students to view. Of course, you can do that. I do strongly suggest if you're uploading Word or Excel files to try to convert them in Google Drive first, because it makes it a lot easier for students to have all of the full configurations that are allowed through doing assignments within Google. Last is YouTube. So what's nice about this feature is you can always just video search right in here. I do like the URL feature because I have a lot of YouTube videos already saved that I like to use. So if you already have some you really love, just copy the URL and paste it right in here. We also have this create button, which is what I'm going to use right now just to kind of model to you what that looks like. So if we press the create button, and let's just make this a doc. What it's going to do is attach a blank Google Doc to your assignment, and as you can see, it pops up the window too to start developing our assignment. So just similarly to our assignment creator over here, we want to make sure that we add a title first. And so in this case, I am once again just going to label this test assignment. And within here, I can make this however I want to make it a template for my students. So let's just say that this is a writing assignment, or maybe we'll say like 4th grade students. So we could say, I want to make this a little bit bigger just to make sure you can see it. In the writing space below, that happened over the summer, right? And I could add more detail to this if I wanted. I could tell them what they need to make sure they do. I could give very specific instructions. Right now, I just want to leave it vague since this is a tutorial, but this is what my students would see. So they'd be able to open this and it says in the writing space below, tell me about 3 important events that happened over the summer. All right. If I had an example of this, I could also attach my example for students to see. It's a really good way for them to be able to have an idea of what you want them to do. But for now, I'm going to leave it at this and head back over to my my assignment creator. So you notice that it says untitled document right now. Don't worry, that will get updated. But we also have a few options here. So whenever you see an arrow pointing down like this, or even a caret, that usually means that there are more options or choices to be selected. So my first one is students can view file. Think of this as almost like a PDF, right? Students can view it, but they can't really do much to it. Students can edit file. In this case, think of it as one big collaboration document, almost like one sheet of paper that you're just passing around to all of your students. If you have a collaboration piece, maybe I like to do like words of encouragement where we just have a big slide where everyone posts words of encouragement for everyone to see. That's a really good choice for that. However, most people tend to default to make a copy for each student. This is a great feature because for every student that you assign this assignment to, they get their own unique copy, similarly to when you're in the brick and mortar classroom and you have to give each student a paper copy. So now I'm going to head over to more choices over here. So now that I've actually got my assignment built, I have a lot of other choices here about which students it's going out to, how it's going to be graded, and when it's going to be due. So I want to skip this box for a second and just move over here to where it says all students. In this classroom in particular, I only have 2 students because it's in a sample classroom, but it does give us a really good idea of what we can do with our choices here. So you can see right now it's clicked with all students. This is great if you have an assignment that you want to go out to all of your students, but sometimes that isn't the case. Sometimes we like to assign to groups of students. Think of guided reading groups, spelling groups, word study groups, any sort of group project that students might be working on. And other times we like to push out individual assignments for students. Maybe they need extra support. Maybe you develop the assignment to be specific towards their needs. Maybe you have a resource room teacher that's attached to your classroom that wants to push out an assignment to just one student, or a speech and language pathologist that wants to push out an assignment to just 1 or 2 students. So this is the place to do that. In this case, let's just say I'm going to push it out to this one student. So I can unclick this and select the students that I want. And it shows right here how many students you've selected for this assignment to be pushed out to. So let's say it was only half of your class and you had 20 students, then it will say that 10 students were selected. The other option that is super cool that I love is that you can select multiple classrooms for your assignment to be pushed out to. So if I click this button, you can see all of my Google Classrooms are coming up, and I can select them and push them out to any of these Google Classrooms. One thing I want you to notice though is that when I select this, I have disabled the feature to be able to assign this to selected students. So if you do choose to push it out to multiple classrooms, you are unable to push it out to select students. It does not pull in all of those student lists for you to be able to select them. So right now I just want to leave it at my class, and I wanted to just push it out to this one student. Perfect. So next is grade category. So these are set up through your settings for your Google Classroom. You don't have to set up grade categories, but if you really like to have established point systems, depending on the type of assignment category, or if you use a weighted system, it's a really awesome feature to look into. So again, that's listed under the class settings. It'll be the settings gear in the top right corner once you're in your Google Classroom. But I'm not going to have a category right now. Just to give you some examples, I have tests, quizzes, random assignments. I'm actually just going to make this worth 5 points. But again, you can make it worth anything. And if you don't want it to be graded, maybe it's just a check-in that you want them to turn in. It's worth no points. You always have that option as well. There's also options, though not required, for due dates. So if you choose a due date, you can pick a date and time if you prefer. Just take note that if you put a due date and time and students do not turn in an assignment by that due date or time, that in the Guardian summaries, that will be reflected. So it will be appeared as missing or late. So just take note of that. Lastly is topics. And these are just a really good way to organize your assignments. And I'll show you what that looks like when we exit out of the assignment creator. But if you have a way you want to organize your assignments, maybe you're a third grade teacher and you want to organize it by math and reading and writing, that's always an option. Maybe you want to organize your assignments by the week, and those are great options too. There's also a choice to add a rubric, but not required. You can always create a rubric, reuse a rubric, or import from Sheets, which is an option I strongly discourage because it's more confusing than helpful. But you can always create one. So if you, for example, this is a writing assignment I created, and maybe I'm grading on content and spelling and grammar, I could create a rubric that reflects that. And once it's created, I can reuse that rubric as much as I want. So if I have other writing assignments that appear later in the semester, I can go ahead and just reuse it, and it's always saved for me right then and there. I can also pull in rubrics from other classrooms as well. So when we go out to assign this, as you can see, there's a bright button, well, not that bright in this case, but there is a button here that does say assign. But if you notice, here's another one of those downward arrows that allow for more options. So we have assign, which is our basic, just pushing it out. Students receive a notification right away that they have access to a new assignment. We have schedule. So this is a great feature if you're done developing your assignment and it's not quite ready to be pushed out yet because it's not something that might be relevant to students at the time. This is a great way to just pick the day that you want it pushed out. You can also pick a specific time. So for me, I found this really helpful with my classroom. I would develop all of my assignments on Sundays, and I would go through and schedule them for their corresponding day of the week. And it just worked out really well. I always pushed them out at 8 a.m. and it was just always there for students to go ahead and get started on it. And it set up a really good routine for them as well, to just know at 8 a.m. they were going to receive a notification that their assignments for the day were posted. The last option is to save a draft. So if you have started developing your assignment in the assignment creator, but you're not quite done, are there things you want to add later, it's not quite finished, you can always save it as a draft so that you can come back to it later and finish working on it. So in this case, I'm going to click Save Draft. And you'll notice that it appears up at the top in gray. If I put a topic on this, it would appear under the topic in gray. And while we're on that topic, let's scroll down to see what topics are. So this big lettering right here that says social studies is a topic. I have differentiated assignments, math, and test topic. So it's just a way of organizing it. Think of it almost like folders that contain specific assignments. Next, I just want to quickly look at the other assignment options. Most of them have a very similar assignment creator page that pops up, but just to quickly show you so you understand some of the differences and can really decide what assignment type meets your needs, let's take a look at quiz assignment, question, and material next. So quiz assignment, you'll see the assignment creator, it looks very similar. However, it has added a blank quiz that you can add. Really cool. I mean, I would definitely encourage looking up some awesome quizzes online examples because you can do so much with Google quizzes as far as having them provide feedback to students, they're self-grading, they can bring in the grades with them. It's really a great teaching tool and really a good assessment tool. A lot of people notice this lock mode on Chromebooks, and this is really a feature that you need your students to, one, be on Chromebooks, and two, be on your school's network to work. So if you meet both of those criteria, what this does is makes it so as soon as students access the quiz, they are no longer able to open new tabs. This isn't necessarily a feature that works when they are working from home and if they're not on Chromebooks. There's also a new toggle right here that we did not see with the other assignment page, which is grade importing. So just like I said previously, quizzes are self-grading. So you build the answer key as you build the quiz, and as students fill it out and complete it, it automatically grades it. And you can have the grades imported into the gradebook right away if you want to. There are some cases where people like to use this as a pre-assessment and don't want the grades to come back in the gradebook because they don't want that to count against the student's overall grade. All you have to do is toggle this off. Of course, you can still go in and access how students did by actually going into the quiz and going through the response data. But in this case, I like to just keep this toggled on. I'd like for the data to be able to be imported back into the gradebook. The next type of assignment is a question. So again, here we have an assignment creator, and almost everything is the same still. The new things are, one, putting in your question. We can say, how was your weekend? And you have a few choices here. You can do short answer or multiple choice. So in this case, I just want it to be short answer. Instructions are still optional. If you wanted to attach anything, you could. This is really good for if you want to just have like short, quick responses, maybe posting a video and ask students to reflect on one thing they learned from the video. You'll also notice over here that we have two new buttons. So the first one that's automatically clicked is that students can reply to each other, right? So students will be able to go in and respond to each other's questions. If that's not something you're comfortable with, or there hasn't been quite the scaffolding yet to get students to that point, of course you can turn this off, and then when you're ready for it, you can go ahead and turn it back on. And then students can edit answer. Depending on the grade level you work with, this might be a feature that you like to have on, just so students can go back and modify their work as needed. Just like the other assignments, we can always ask it right away, schedule, or save it as a draft. And then the last thing I want to show you is material. So material is basically anything you want students to be able to access that they don't necessarily need to turn back into you. So for example, it might be a multiplication chart, or it might be digital posters on how to do fraction multiplication, or it might be a map of the United States or of the world. So think of any of those resources that you would hand out in your class, that, or even links to manipulatives, digital manipulatives for math, anything that you would hand out in your class to help aid your students in completing their work that they don't necessarily turn back in for a grade. It posts essentially, think of it almost like a PDF. So students have access to it, and I like to just keep a topic in my classroom that is just resources and tools. And you can always get more specific. If you wanted them to know that it was math resources and tools, you can tell them that. And then again, you just put in a title. You can put in a description if you want, totally optional. And you still have the same options for adding. Once you're ready, again, it's the same three choices of post, schedule, or save draft. If you're interested in making topics, of course, you can just click this topic button and you'll see that a little window pops up to add topics. And the last feature that I really want to show you is the reuse post. So if you click this, maybe you had a post that you really loved that you used last year in a previous class, or maybe you're attached to maybe a teammate's Google Classroom and they used an awesome assignment. If you click reuse post, it pulls up all of your classes and you can select any of them that you want. And then it will do, I think, the grade math test stuff. And then it pulls up all of the assignments on there so you could go ahead and reuse them. So you just select them and then you can click reuse. So this is a really helpful feature for you to be able to go back and access some of those awesome assignments you've used before. And earlier I told you all about that class drive folder where all of your essentially master copies are saved. Those are actually located right here in the class drive folder. So if you're trying to get there quick and easy, I know searching through Google Drive sometimes can be a tedious task. If you want to get there quick and easy, all you have to do is click this folder button, and it actually takes you to all of your stuff that has been a part of this classroom. I know mine has a different name right now. I could go ahead and change that to what I've actually changed my Google Classroom to, but it brings up everything, every assignment I've created for this class. I'll show you one more quick way to get there, and that's when you go to all of your classes. So it's the Google Classroom landing page. And you'll notice that there's a folder button right there. You can always click that too, and that will take you right where you need to be for being able to access all of your master copies. And that's it for creating assignments in Google Classroom.